It was with some awe and some trepidation that I was listening to Mark's keynote presentation just a few moments ago when he was talking about data being transmitted from mobile phones on shopping habits, and it's no doubt very soon that there'll be an app that'll be able to transmit that data to my husband, so I won't be able to say, that's been in my wardrobe for ages. So the advances in ICT are just absolutely incredible. I just want to spend a few moments this afternoon, stimulating an interest, really, if it isn't already stimulated, in research and development in the marine renewables sector. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Centre for Advanced Sustainable Energy, access that you can have through the centre to world-class research that's happening here locally, our work in marine energy and specifically tidal energy to date, and finally, the Enter and I tidal energy demonstration site and our proposals there. I just wanted to set the local innovation history into some sort of context for you first. For example, did you know that John Wood Dunlop invented the pneumatic tyre very close to here? And Lord Kelvin came up with the second law of thermodynamics in Belfast. The aircraft ejector seat was invented by James Martin and has saved 7,300 lives in 93 air forces worldwide to date. And James Murray invented milk of magnesia. And I do hope that we won't be needing any of the last two of those things in the next proceedings today. But what you should also know by now, because Mark Ennis stole my thunder slightly this morning, is that 1 in 4 full-scale marine prototypes have been developed, manufactured, or tested in Northern Ireland. So that sets the context for the Centre for Advanced Sustainable Energy's work in marine renewables and the interest that we've had from industry shown over the year and a half to 2 years that we've been in development. Mark Ennis introduced us as a £7 million centre for industry-driven research. We have aspirations for that to be at least a £10 million centre, with £5 million of that funding coming from Invest Northern Ireland. We have goals to leverage additional funding, and there was mention of EU thematic lead, Dominic McCloskey, who I think you're going to be introduced to this afternoon. And Dominic and I will be working very closely together on pulling partnerships together, industry collaborations for the next phase of EU funding through Horizon 2020. Up to 75% of research funding is available through the Invest Northern Ireland programme for collaborative research projects. So if you're keen to talk to each other on an industry-to-industry basis, then we're keen to talk to you to help to match you with academics who can undertake that research for you. And we're a partnership, although I'm physically based at Queen's University, we're a partnership of Queen's, the University of Ulster and the Agri-Food and Biosciences Institute here. So the research needs of any industry partner can be given or provided by those three partners. And it's thanks to Adam Meller at AFBI that some of these slides have been provided today. So the difficult questions are for Adam later. We're a sister organisation to the Questor Centre at Queen's. Questor is an industry-led collaborative research centre that's been operating under the National Science Foundation's model since 1989 and has been specifically focused on environmental monitoring, water and wastewater treatment and waste and remediation. And more latterly, we overlap on the energy from biomass sector. But industry have been talking to us over the last 2 years, and CASE has emerged with two new major themes: turbines and demand-side management under the sustainable energy umbrella. And it's the turbine sector that is where we're focusing our marine renewables energy research to date. And as I've said, we're very much focused on industry needs and believe that the partnerships that we are going to create are built very much on the trust between industry and academia and bridging the gap between what industry has identified and what academics are able to provide, which has been a traditional gap acknowledged. People have often asked me, am I the crocodile or the bird in this particular picture? We've been engaging with, as I said, organisations across a broad sector of the renewable energy sphere. And they're just a number of the companies that we've worked with on early stage development of projects and proposals that we already have in place. And you'll see there are a number that come multinational organisations and a number that are local to the Northern Ireland SME. And as I said, marine renewable energy research will come under the turbine sector cluster. And turbines covers a broad spectrum for us, wind, wave and tidal, but not just looking at the actual devices themselves, looking at design and manufacture, feasibility studies, new materials, fibres that have been mentioned, and modelling and measurement and site characterisation work, and new technology breakthroughs. And as I said, our research clusters are very much focused on three main areas. We have talked to industry, they've come back to us and identified what their main research priorities are within the turbine cluster. And when we're talking about ICT and how ICT may impact upon renewable energies, particularly in the marine sector, I don't think there's any one of those particular areas that we could actually undertake research that doesn't include energy, doesn't include ICT in one shape or form. And as an organisation, we're basing our marine renewables expertise on world-class research that's been undertaken here locally. I suppose specifically, Trevor Whitaker was mentioned this morning and his team at Queen's in the Environmental and Engineering Research Centre. Since 2009, the centre's been able to identify or get hold of £2.36 million worth of funding for marine renewables, and has actually been operating since the invention of the Wells turbine since the mid-1970s. At the moment, the team has 25 people with a focus on, well, a broad spectrum of marine renewables, with a Portaferry science laboratory base just looking over at the CGN turbine, and a wave tank in the David Keir building at Queen's University. So access there to research capability is just an example of where we can provide some assistance to organisations. The university has worked on the CGN turbine at Strangford, looking at things like tidal resource characterisation, real-time monitoring, environmental monitoring, both pre and post-installation, and looking at the performance of the turbine. And also, as historically, the first nearshore wave station at Isla, Limpet, Oyster and Evopod just being some of the industry academic research partnerships that have happened over the years. But as far as the Centre for Advanced Sustainable Energy is concerned, within the turbine sector, there's been a very strong focus on the tidal energy sector. It's partly because of the announcement of the Crown Estate's offshore leasing rights in the Fairhead, the Rathlin Torhead strategic area. And that's really stimulated industry interest and a potential supply chain opportunity for companies across the island of Ireland. And in light of this, and because of the research interests at Queen's, the very first project under the CASE umbrella is affectionately known as Triple T, tandem, 10th scale tandem turbine, which is looking at the development of turbines in array format. So you can just about see, maybe you can't see the image, but Owen certainly had a fantastic image of it in his slide presentation earlier on. A catamaran that's actually sitting currently at Strangford Lock with a 10th scale grid sitting between the two bows, and attached to those are two turbines of 10th scale. And the project is very much focused on moving the turbines around that grid and looking at how they interact and impact on each other, and how the wake either has a positive or negative impact on the generation of electricity. And we currently have 5 partners associated with the project under the watchful eye of Trevor and Bjorn Elsesser at Queen's. This is a world first, looking at this sort of scale in real sea conditions, and has been successfully funded by a grant for R&D from an Invest NI programme. And it's acting as a precursor to another project that we've been developing over the last 18 months, known as the Enter NI project, which is enabling tidal energy in Northern Ireland, looking at the opportunities for full-scale commercial tidal turbine demonstration in Northern Irish waters. We're looking at arrays, as single devices have very much already been tested well at sites across the UK and further afield. And we've identified suitable sites on the north coast. And our research work and site identification work to date has very much been supported by Invest Northern Ireland. And the next stage of our proposals are to undertake first phase site characterisation, looking at what information is required for the consenting and licensing processes for developments of arrays of turbine sites at commercial scale. And we have a proposal that we've been working in collaboration with industrial partners, Fairhead, Tidal Energy, developing innovative methodologies and research and development activity in a range of key areas, mammals and birds, as you can see, benthic communities, fish, marine archaeology, geophysics, noise, resource assessment, etc. And again, there is one of these particular bullet points where ICT isn't a fundamental and critical part of the data collection required to look at consenting and licensing, for example, for this type of project. And data is key. Data is absolutely fundamental to the licensing and consenting processes. Up until now, there's been a limited need, really, in the renewable energy or marine renewable energy sector for real-time data, and it's a considerable commercial decision. The cost of the collection of the data has so far outweighed the risk of data losses, but we're now having to operate in much higher energy sites, and there's emerging anecdotal evidence of a number of hardware losses at sea. And hardware losses are costly, but software and data losses can be even more costly. Imagine the impact of losing 6 months' worth of data, for example, because you've lost an ADCP somewhere floating about on the ocean. 6 months of a delay to a development project or to a consenting and licensing process. But ICT for renewables isn't new. This is a project example on the screen here that AFBI had worked with SRSL in Scotland over 10 years ago, where data collection by a profiling sphere on the bottom of the ocean is transmitted to a buoy on the surface and then to the ground. And it's thanks to the likes of Smart Bay and EMIC, where new and innovative technology is continuing to be tested to allow for improvements in site characterisation and opportunities for real-time telemetry. The quality of data collected, therefore, and the quantity of data collected is therefore a real commercial decision to be made. What's the scale of the hardware, the cost of the deployment? Are we looking at cabled or non-cabled transmission, and the consideration for the particular data bandwidths? All of these things have to be weighed up and assessed against the risk of the potential losses, and not just of the hardware, as I said, but of the software in some circumstances. These are the sorts of projects, these are the sorts of initiatives that we'll be building into our Enter-NI potential project and ongoing marine renewables research in the future. Thank you very much for your time.